friends, it's Danny. Welcome back to Dine It Frugal. On today's episode, we are making an easy quiche recipe. So a quiche recipe starts off with a custard and a pastry lined pie shell, and then you can add basically whatever toppings you like in there into that custard. So I'm going to show you how to make one of these really easily. I don't know why quiche is so expensive in the stores. Whenever I go in there, they're like $15, $20 more than that, and they're so easy to make. I just don't get it. So I want to show you how to make one with just what's in your fridge, because that's what I'm doing today. You can add whatever combinations you like of fillings. And yeah. First of all, we're going to start with our pastry shell. So I've actually created another video specifically for the pastry shell or the pastry case that you can go and watch. I'll put the link in the iCard and in the description so that you can get there easily. But once you've gone ahead and made that, or you can use a store-bought pastry case, it's really up to you, whatever's easier. We can go and make our filling. So here we have our pie crust. And the first thing we need to do with our pie crust is to blind bake it. So let's move over to the bench and I'll show you how I blind bake my pastry cases. Okay, so here is the beautiful pastry case that I made earlier. We need to blind bake this for 15 minutes and then 5 minutes. And let me explain that to you. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of baking paper or parchment paper into my pie shell. Now this pie shell is nice and sturdy because I've had it hanging out in the fridge. And I've also got my oven preheated to 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so what I have here is baking beads. Now I bought these a long time ago, but you don't need these. If you have rice or dried beans, you can use those instead. So I've probably got about 2 cups of baking beads here. Just the only thing is once you've used the rice or the dried beans to blind bake, you can't use them for anything else. You can't cook them, but I would keep them in a little packet like this so that you can reuse them. I think I got these as a present, because that's what I used to do. I used to use just rice. So what we're going to do is try and evenly distribute those over the base. And what these beads do is stop the pastry from rising up. Okay. Now that we've done that, we'll put this in the oven and we're going to bake it for 15 minutes and then I'll bring you back. So while I'm waiting for our pie shell to blind bake, I want to talk a little bit about the fillings that we're using. So really, like I said before, you can use whatever fillings you like in a quiche as long as they're kind of on the dry side. You don't want to add any extra moisture to that custard if you can avoid it. So what I did is, and this is what I'm using in my quiche today, because this is what I had in my fridge, and what I wanted to use is I sauteed up some brown onion, just in a little bit of olive oil until it was cooked through and translucent, and just a tiny little bit caramelized. I had some spinach in the freezer, so I ended up thawing that out and just, I ended up cooking it after the onion in the same pan just to get rid of the extra moisture. But you could squeeze out the extra moisture if you just want to thaw it out and then do it that way. Then I have some feta that I needed to use up, so I've just got some Danish feta here that I've crumbled. And I've had some bacon, cooked bacon that I had sitting in the freezer that I want to use up as well. And I can't believe how well cooked bacon actually freezes. So I think next time that I make bacon, I'm going to make extra and freeze it for later use, because this has been really convenient. I can put bacon into my recipe and I haven't had to deal with cooking it off. So that's really the mix-ins, but you can use, I've used onion, feta and baked pumpkin or caramelized pumpkin. You can use leek and spring onions, whatever you really want. Like, it's so easy. As long as you make the custard base, you can really add in whatever mix-ins to the quiche that you like, sun-dried tomatoes, things like that. So it's a really good recipe to keep in mind if you have a whole lot of stuff in the fridge that you want to use up. Okay, Okay, so 15 minutes have gone by and I've pulled out my pastry shell, my quiche. I've pulled out the pastry case for the quiche out of the oven. So I'm just going to pull off my baking beads. And do you see how it's kind of a little bit wet in the center? I'm going to put this back in for about between 5 and 10 minutes, I think closer to 5. And while we're doing that, we're going to go ahead and work on our filling. Okay, so here we're going to start off by making our custard base. So what I have here is my eggs. As always, the full recipe and a printable version is available at dineatfrugal.com, so head over there and get the recipe. I'll also put the link in the description to make that easy for you. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to break up my eggs and give them a nice whisk. And you want to make sure that your eggs are beaten really, really well. Okay, so that is perfect, just the way that I want it. You just want to make sure that the eggs are fully incorporated and there's no like egg white, like it has to be fully mixed. Okay, so then I'm going to add in my milk and cream mixture. So this is milk, 50% milk, 50% cream, and that's what I'm using. And we're going to get these two things mixed in really well as well, so make sure that they're really well combined. It's easier to do this when your eggs have been beaten up really, really well. So there we go. Then to this, we're going to add salt and pepper. I'm going to add seasoned salt. Now this is not my recipe. I got this off scratchpantry.com. I'll put a link in the description so you can head over there and see what's in it. I'm using, if you don't want to use this, you can just use salt and pepper. I'm using a teaspoon, and I'm being very conservative with the salt because I did make this once and it was so salty we could barely eat it. So just be really conservative with the salt. Alright, so I'm going to give that a good whisk. Particularly because I have feta in here and I've got cheddar cheese and they're quite salty on their own, so I don't want to oversalt this. Alright, now that that's all whisked together, let's get our add-ins in. I've got my cheddar cheese, onion, I've got spinach, I've got the bacon, and feta. And now I'm just going to wait for the timer to go off so we can pour this into our pastry case. I'm actually going to put my quiche onto this alfoil lined baking pan just to avoid any spills. And here is our quiche. Okay, so let's get this all in, and I'm hoping it's going to fit. Just. I'm thinking this is going to take somewhere between 45 and 60 minutes. We'll know when it's done when the edges are nice and golden brown, it's golden brown on top, and it only slightly jiggles in the center, but it's got a bit of stability there. So I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, I'll see you back in 45 to 60 minutes. A little secret, I am very lazy. I should have actually put, after the pie shell came out of the oven, what I should have done is I should have actually sprinkled the add-ins over the base and then poured the custard over the top. I didn't do that. I mixed everything together and then poured it in, and there's a risk with that all of your mix-ins are going to go into the center, which I'm kind of a little bit worried about at the moment just because of how full that pie shell was. I'm just going to go with it. But if you want a little bit more If you want to be a little bit more risk averse than I am, I would go ahead and do that instead of the way that I've done it. It's up to you though. So 60 minutes have gone by and hopefully you can see that. This is what the quiche looks like. So when I jiggle it, you'll see that, hopefully you can see that it's very wobbly in the middle. It's not done at all. So I think it's gonna take about another half an hour. So let's go with that. Otherwise, it's looking absolutely stunning. The edges are starting to set nicely. It's just that center. So this time our quiche is done and I want to show you what it looks like when it's done. And if you can hear running in the background, that Spike going up and down the hallway. So let's take a look in here. Okay, so this is what our quiche looks like. It is beautiful and done. You'll see that when I wobble it, it doesn't wobble. There's a tiny little jiggle in the middle, but it doesn't wobble at all. So that is good enough for me. So you don't want to go ahead and serve this right out of the oven. You want to allow it to cool for a little bit. I'm going to give it about half an hour, 45 minutes. I've just put some snacks in the oven for Matt because it's getting late, but we're going to have this for dinner a little bit later on. Okay, so this is what the quiche looks like. After it's been cut. It's absolutely delicious. I had a little bit of a taste and it tastes really, really good. You normally don't cut it or eat it this hot. I'm just starving. It's like 6:30 at night. We still haven't had dinner, so I've just gone ahead and cut it. But it's usually better and easier to cut if you cut it. Let me move the plate out of my way. It's usually better and easier to cut when it comes closer to room temperature. So you can eat this cold from the fridge or at room temperature or hot like we're eating it now. But thank you so much for staying into the end. Thank you so much for watching the video and being in my kitchen with me today. As always, the link to the recipe is in the description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and I will see you next time for the next episode of Dine It Frugal. See ya!